I am Chantel. It's nice to see all of you. Full disclosure, was not mentally prepared for this big stage, and I have a lot of hair, and I think I'm going to probably mess with the mic, so who knows what we're in for. So I'm here to talk to you about the meta trap and short-term brand performance versus long-term brand equity. So in case you don't know me, my name is Chantel. I am a fractional CMO, and I like to say that I'm behind the scenes of the brand that you're obsessed with, because I'm so obsessed with brand marketing, and I think that shows through in the work that I've done. I've worked with brands like Petal & Pup, New Harvest Supplements, Sunday's The Label, and just a lot of other brands that are quite brand-centric. I also have a podcast called If You Know, You Grow, and these are ways to, I guess, connect with me, because I feel as though I'm going to say things that people may have more questions on. So just as a heads up. I also, if you haven't met me before, have sometimes a mildly inappropriate sense of humor, and I really like memes, so both of those are going to show through in this presentation today. So, is meta a trap? My controversial feelings are it's not as straightforward as you think. So originally, when I was chatting to them about the programming around this, it's because everybody will often be like, I don't want to work with Meta. And I've had brands tell me, my ultimate goal is to spend $0 on Meta. But ultimately, we live in a world where I don't think for the foreseeable future, Meta is going to be something that we can ignore. But I think that Meta is something that we should learn to become friends with, and it should actually be a way that we track the equity of every other decision that we are making. Because if you dislike Meta, it's likely because you are only allowing Meta to run, and you're not optimizing any other channel. And that's pretty unfair to expect one channel to grow an entire business. So this is a traditional marketing funnel that we then kind of screwed up a little bit, because in reality, we think that Meta is our conversion channel, and we're just going to run conversion on it, and it's going to make an amazing business. And I think there are some pretty cool examples of brands that have been able to scale with just that, but you're going to hit a ceiling, and right now, it is more complicated than ever to inspire growth as a brand. Realistically, people are saying like, oh, I'm going into maybe a market that's not really, the market's too saturated. The market is like, there's a lot of competition. So what you do and the way that you drive your brand is going to be what makes it stand out. So across the funnel, I've put some of our favorite logos. Every single thing that you do pretty much sits across your entire funnel. We'll get into Google a little bit later. I will caveat with the fact that I generally work with brands where brand equity is going to be the most important thing in your brand. And as a female, I have never searched little black dress. I shop brand equity first. Sometimes I'm actually asking AI now what to give me based on what's already in my wardrobe. But I need to be hit with a brand in multiple ways and multiple times in order to actually see conversion. But then we have poor little Meta that we're just expecting to sit just at the conversion portion, or we're running awareness ads on Meta when there are actually cheaper, more efficient, and more trusted ways for us to be doing it. One thing I will also touch on is influencer marketing. I didn't start a career with thinking that like influencer marketing is really what I wanted to do, but I think I have a very different experience than anyone in Australia has ever had. Not only have I built 8-figure influencer programs for brands, I've also worked for influencer-owned brands, and I've probably bought more influencer advertising space, because it is a form of ad space, than anyone else in the industry. So I do think that gives me a bit of a competitive advantage in the way that I see that. There are also other activities, such as TikTok, that I think people kind of demonize because they have unfair expectations. So I know there's a lot of conversation of the fact that, Gen Z has really changed our funnel. I don't think the funnel's necessarily changed. I think we just need to be really clear on what the expectations are of each channel, and we need to make sure that everybody works together. So when you're thinking about brand marketing, what are your touch points? I feel like most people here would know this, but in case you didn't, did you know that it takes 7 touch points generally to drive conversion? So if you think of frequency, if you are just putting everything into Meta, you are expecting Meta to have what most would consider too high of a frequency before it's going to drive conversion. So other touch points that I can think of that you can be investing in are organic social, which we will touch on organic social and how algorithms have changed recently. Substack, Threads, 2 that I don't really see people invest in but can actually build long-term brand equity, especially Substack. Community and affiliate, I put those together because I think they are very nuanced and they can be one and the same. Google, SEO, whether it be AI-based SEO, social SEO, which is if you are running any type of Gen Z or millennial fashion or accessory brand, incredibly important. Editorial press, influencer marketing, and email and SMS. I'm not going to touch on all of these because we do only have the 30 minutes, but I'm going to touch on some of the ones that I feel we are often afraid to discuss as brands. Or maybe if you're someone here that loves brand marketing, you're really struggling to figure out how to quantify. So if you are not doing these touch points, I kind of relate it to being on Hinge, swiping on a bunch of people and then never going on a date and wondering why you haven't had a date. You need to make sure that you are following through with the actions that you've set out with as a marketer. So all of those things, maybe except for email and SMS, because I think that whilst they're often over-attributed, obviously drive conversion, I often get the conversation of people being like, but it doesn't convert. Organic social doesn't convert. Influencer doesn't convert. Or they're putting the opposite, too much importance on community, but they don't actually have a community, and they don't understand why it's not converting. You're expecting too much, so it's not about lowering your standards, but it's about having really clear expectations of why you're investing in the different channels and what type of outcome you're anticipating to see. If you don't know the purpose of every channel you're investing in, then you are just being busy. You are going to burn yourself out. You are going to burn your team out. And I am somebody that is very data-driven and very pragmatic, but I also think, well, I know I'm a little bit woo-woo, and I definitely think that the energy and the purpose and the work that you're doing is going to help drive a bigger outcome overall. So let's chat about Instagram, because Instagram's not dead, but Instagram has had some huge algorithm changes recently. So are you posting for a KPI, or are you actually telling a story? Often I'll have people who want social media managers on their team, and they're like, I want KPIs. I think that you should want deliverables, but I don't think you should want KPIs, because the job of social media is to be a digital touch point that tells a story. Very recently, this was released as what is impacting your views, or your views overall. So the first one is skip rate. So what does that mean? That means Instagram is now measuring things the way that TikTok does. Why? Because we've been trained by a social media platform to literally not have to engage in order to like something. So whether or not your content is skippable is actually going to change the way that this pushes out to the rest of the audience. The next is the share rate. So back are the memes. Back are things like, the Pinterest mood boards, things that you want to share to somebody. Yes, there is a lot of conversation on Instagram where they actually are going to start penalizing some of those really heavy meme accounts because they're trying to gamify an experience. But it doesn't mean that your brand can't have personality. And when you're thinking of the social content, how can I build a strategy that makes somebody want to share something? The next most important one is the like rate. So that's actually come down in priority in terms of the ranking for the algorithm. You then have save rate, repost rate, and comment rate. So Instagram kind of picked up on the fact that not only do we have tools like ManyChat, if you're familiar with ManyChat, it is basically a lead gen tool and helps boost engagement because it will send links directly to your audience, which I love. It's actually a really great tool, but it means we can't over-index on expecting that to improve our algorithm. And also engagement pods are dead. So I'm sure that the reason you dislike influencer marketing is because you saw someone that you thought had a really great engagement rate, but what you didn't look at is on the bottom or on all of their comments, it was their friends commenting, "Angel baby, love you, obsessed." That wasn't genuine sentiment, that was actually an engagement pod. So the reason that you didn't see return is because people had learned how to basically skew the data. And I think as marketers, unfortunately, that's something that we can be very good at. It's why we shouldn't be married to terms like ROAS. It's why we have to look at things that are full funnel. Because if you want me to get you a metric, I'll get you the metric. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm driving growth for the brand. So when you're thinking about Instagram and when your team's thinking about Instagram and TikTok, which now this is great because this means more content can be cross-purposed across platforms, we are trying to entertain people. We are competing with Netflix. We are not competing with any other form of social media. The next thing is influencer marketing isn't dead. So these are actually statistics from Forbes, but creator recommendations influence 74% of online purchases currently. 92% of consumers trust influencers more than brand ads, and the creator economy is already valued at $30 billion. 6 years ago, it was at $2 billion, and it's projected to be $60 billion by 2030. So there is a really easy way for you to burn cash with influencer marketing. And I think the reason that I'm so passionate, and I will have a couple of conversations with you now about influencer marketing, is because I've watched it continuously in my career really, really, really work. But it needs to be treated like a form of advertising space in the way you would treat anything else. And I do have a cheat sheet that I'm going to give all of you. The other thing is, I think sometimes as marketers, as we're seeing emerging channels, and unfortunately sometimes as Australians, and yes, I'm American, so I get that I don't sound Australian, but I've lived here for 17 years, so I get the culture. Tall poppy syndrome exists, and that's so prevalent in influencer marketing. Do good, but oh no, you're doing too good, so I don't want to support you anymore. That doesn't mean the channel's dead, it means you need to shift your perspective on the channel. So with influencer marketing, you might love it or you might hate it. I love it because it adds an opportunity for really great storytelling. It supports a community that's an extension of your own. It supports multiple content pathways. It validates the brand in a competitive market, and it increases reach exponentially. So I did a collaboration with Sunday's The Label and Alex Davidson. Alex Davidson, from a metrics perspective, is one of the top creating and top converting influencers on LTK. LTK is a platform that I can honestly say has not entered the Australian market in the way that I believe that it could have. Because we, as brands, and I think as creators, haven't really educated the consumer on the fact that it is a great shopping platform. Whereas in America, you will actually have people on LTK that have hundreds of thousands of people that follow them that have no other social media anywhere else. So if you think about, oh, I would love to literally shop somebody's life, that is the purpose of the platform. So I was able to use data, like LTK data, to see how Alex Davidson was selling. And now if you are on LTK, you can actually access your top creators for free. You don't have to pay for that anymore, it is in your dashboard. And I was able to build a story that made sense. The way that this story made sense was because I made sure that the creator had onus in the collection, in the terms of she was able to share part of her story and part of her style, so everything felt authentic, but she also was on a purely rev share agreement. When it comes to co-branded collections, if somebody is not down for a purely rev share agreement and they actually want base payments, then they don't have confidence in selling. And I'm not gonna put my skin in the game if they're not gonna put their skin in the game. The really cool thing about this is I have been able to build campaigns that have been incredibly, incredibly profitable. And then, do you know what? There are some of them where the creator didn't actually drive that much, but the cost to the brand was sitting at an MER of that campaign of worst case scenario, 9%, which is still a very safe campaign to be running. So here's my influencer marketing cheat sheet, because I could actually do an entire long session on this, but we are not going to. The top tips for running a successful influencer marketing campaign, because again, this sits in your strategy. And if you looked at that original funnel, influencer marketing is actually something that can drive conversion, it can drive awareness, it can drive consideration, and it can also drive loyalty. The first is be specific, because you are buying a form of advertising space. If you have a women's fashion brand, you're probably not going to invest in, and I know this is dramatic, but a commercial during state of origin. Like, that's gonna be the last thing that you wanna do. So why would you choose a creator that was bad advertising space for your brand? Don't chase clout, chase community. I actually don't care if they have 8 million followers. I have seen a creator who has built community with their followers, with 28,000 followers, drive more revenue than somebody with 8 million followers. You need to know the origin story of your creator in order to drive a great campaign. This actually isn't in here, but a really relevant, I guess, context of that is there's a creator on the market who's amazing. She's beautiful. She's a great mommy blogger. But she actually used to be a zoo girl back in the day. And that's where 350 over 400,000 followers came from. So I can see that from engagement rates, and I can see that from an over-indexed male following. But it means that I can't just look at a following when I'm building this campaign. The next is that content is only as good as usage rights, and as a brand, you control the narrative. If you are investing in somebody for their brand equity, and you're only buying a story that no one's ever gonna see again, you will have a pretty low return on investment because you're literally banking off the fact that hopefully it gets seen. The next is that people want everything gifted. There are some brands where you've done such a good job of building your brand that they will do it for free. That's not the case for everybody. So when you're being specific about buying your advertising space, you wouldn't work for free, so why would you expect somebody else to? The other thing in the US, just as an FYI, you legally cannot send somebody a contract for a contra exchange. You can't do that. So if it is something that you're doing, just know that that could end up being quite litigious down the line. The next is that long-term wins outweigh short-term gains. I worked with a creator once on a mid-size collection, so she was a size extra large, and the brand carried from double extra small to 4 extra large. Not only did we see 3 huge days in revenue growth for the brand at a full price level, but then we actually saw, from the point that that collab launched, an additional 25% increase in the size variants that were extra large and above, because we were able to create, or we were able to allow a community to be seen. The next is that frequency will always allow for continuity. If you're buying space on TikTok, don't just buy one TikTok. Buy multiple TikToks, because one TikTok could flop. And if you've given them the wrong creative brief, it might flop. So you actually want to see a repeat in frequency. If you're briefing the content like an ad as well, it's going to flop. So if you just want to pay them for UGC, and there are creators that I will pay for UGC and not pay them to post on feed, I'll mention one of them because I'm happy to share, Dakota Thompson. I love Dakota Thompson. My party trick with her is I will actually book her as a model, because then I have usage on all of the content, and it gets the same brand equity as if I would have paid for it in feed. Because when people see the ad, I'm actually helping support Meta through multiple parts of the funnel, in the fact that someone really cool and someone on trend has actually, in the consumer eyes, validated the brand, because people see her as an influencer before they see her as a model. And if it's not on brand, don't have a discount code, please, because that is something that the Australian market doesn't like as much. If you're a mommy brand and you sell something that they will get super excited about it, do a discount code. But if it is within your brand ethos to not have discount codes, why would you change that logic just because you are chasing conversion? You're not actually chasing brand growth. The next is community. So if you don't have a community, if you're not willing to build it. So community is still, like, I think, the biggest trending word often in the industry. And I'll have brands be like, thank you so much to our community, and it'll get like 3 engagements, and I've never seen them respond to a comment. Like, you don't have a community, it's literally your customer, and I don't know that you care as much as you should. If people don't feel engaged, how are you considering the fact that you're going to build loyalty, because you're not actually loyal to them? So ways that you can help build community are actually engaging with your customers. And I know these are brands with big resources, right? I love the Duolingo Owl, I love Wendy's, and I love Rare Beauty because I see them comment on everybody's TikToks. And you know what it does? It makes me actually go click on their page and engage in their page. And then now they can retarget me. The next is showcase your customers. If you're afraid of showcasing your customers across appropriate content, then maybe you're not in love with your customers in that sense. And I know that there's this really hard play around, brand equity versus like what is actually going to work for the aesthetics of brands. But there's always a time and place to actually make your customers feel loved. I know that I post content on Instagram and I love to shop from Dish, and I am so not cool enough to ever be a Dish and feed post. But do you know what? If I post something, they'll sometimes like it, or maybe they'll comment, and then that makes me feel as though they love me as much as I love them. Make business choices based on your customers as well, and based on your community. So if you're only making a decision on your business, and I'll use an example of return rate, because again, I work a lot with fashion. If you're like, well, I'm gonna improve the fit of this because I wanna reduce the return rate, you're actually approaching it from the wrong lens. It should be, I wanna reduce the return rate of this because I can tell that I'm not providing great customer satisfaction, and that's really bad for my community. Do you know what's gonna happen if you shift that mindset? That means your team's actually gonna care, because the designer doesn't get the fact that a return rate is impacting the overall profitability. You get that as maybe a GM or a head of product, but the designer just wants to create things that actually are fitting people amazingly because they want to see people wearing their clothing in the wild. And then the last is support in real life touch points. There are so many things that you can do that are low cost. I love a little Pilates morning if you have a wellness brand. So this is my personal opinion on Google, and I just really needed to use this meme of she doesn't even go here. And I had so many memes because I really do think that Google, and I know this is socially native, but for fashion and accessory brands, Google's the pick-me. Google's like, oh yeah, I've been here all the time, I've been doing all this work. No. You are picking up the attribution from the other work that I've been doing. So an example would be TikTok. I don't trust the attribution on TikTok at all. I also don't trust the attribution on Google. But when I'm running really clever TikTok campaigns, you know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing my PMAX absolutely skyrocket. That doesn't mean I'm gonna put more money into PMAX. It means I know that I'm building brand equity, because someone who doesn't realize that they're using Google search to land on the website is searching my brand name in Google, and then it's being picked up by PMAX. Then on to TikTok. Paid or organic, what's the purpose of each? So I don't know if anyone bought the Henny Macon tank. I feel like if you're a 20 or 30-something female, then you absolutely have seen it. This was probably the biggest and best example I've seen in the last 2 years of making a product go viral, because Henny now supersedes Nadia Bartel. So you could sit here and say, oh, it's an influencer brand, don't use them. I think that it is bigger than an influencer brand now, because so many people don't know that an influencer and a WAG own the brand. And how did they do that? They're actually making their tank a talking point on the internet. Yes, this would have been through strategic seeding, but then what happens is people want it. So people then see it sell out, and then people are then prompted to do their own try-on hauls. So one of these creators I do believe is gifted. The other two I actually don't believe were gifted. What they're probably doing is they want to be seen in the product because they want the opportunity to be on the gifting list. We have to remember that people do things often for ego, and social media is a really good example of that, particularly with TikTok. So with TikTok, don't chase virality, chase authenticity. Oftentimes when you go viral on TikTok, it can actually be for a really bad reason. If anyone has seen everyone has seen the TBH mini skirt thing that Rach Wild did last year, and it went viral and it ended up on the wrong side of TikTok. We jumped on that as a brand, and then because we ended up on the wrong side of TikTok, I took the account and I was like, guys, I don't want you to respond. I'm gonna respond to every single guy that is just being mean right now, because I do want to boost the engagement. Thank you for the engagement. But did we see a revenue uplift? Absolutely not. Storytell and narrate your brand world. Chase cheaper CPMs and more brand equity. And it's designed to entertain, not instantly to convert. So many brands on TikTok that are huge may not actually have huge revenue, but they have brand equity, which will eventually translate to brand revenue. So going into the purpose of events, this is probably like a very long slide, so I will summarize it in the best way possible. But I love an event. And the thing with an event is if you're choosing the right influencers, then you can actually have an influencer and customer event. We don't need to be in a world where we actually have different ones. And if you do those together, you need to treat them the same. A really big, very reputable shoe brand hosted an event a couple weeks ago, and the influencers were on one side and got free shit, and the customers were on the other side. Unfortunately, I only heard about it because of the mistake that they did with the customers receiving the other side. Everything needs to be a branded moment. So it doesn't matter what they're sharing and they don't tag the brand. Everybody should know that you're actually that they are at a brand event. So next Friday, we're doing a big product launch for Sundays the Label. There is not a single mirror in the Mondrian that is not going to have the Sundays logo on it, because if someone doesn't tag us, everybody is going to know. At experiences, it's kind of awkward to go to a dinner where you don't know anybody. So what can you do? What can you do to make it a little bit more fun? This is also why if you're a wellness brand, I love a Pilates morning. If you're an activewear brand, I love a Pilates morning. And also, don't get in your own head. I think it's really easy for that to creep in and say, well, events don't work. Let me tell you, in my experience, events work, and I love planning an event. The way that I quantify the success of an event is I see a decrease in CPMs and an increase in ROAS, because I've had a huge reach that I can now effectively retarget through really, really clear meta strategies. The earned media value is often 10 to 45 times the cost of the event. So next Friday, there is one person that I know will share one story, and I won't have usage of it, but I know that that one story set, because she's going to want to show people that they're there because it's super cool, actually would cost more than the entire event itself. At an event, you get so much content, and then you get usage on the content, because when one of the Hembrow sisters is there, part of the terms of attending the event is going to be that we get to have videos of them. I think Verge Girl does this phenomenally. They run so much content of their events that I'm like, I wish I could be invited. It's so cool. And I think we've all kind of watched their evolution the last couple years. And it also provides a shift in storytelling. You have something to talk about that's not just selling your product, but actually shows your product in the wild with different people having positive experiences. The goal in brand marketing is you should aspire to inspire. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it. So let's rebrand retention to inspiring our customers. If we inspire our customers, if we build advocacy and loyalty, we are going to continually have people come back. And then again, if we're wondering, how are we quantifying this? Strong browse abandonment and cart abandonment conversion. I realize this actually point doesn't make sense, but don't spam people. Be really intentional. Create FOMO. Create scarcity. Nurture your customers through long-term campaigns. And also note that your post-purchase, again, should be aspirational. It shouldn't just be a cross-sell or an upsell. If you don't understand what you are doing, you can't actually manage it in this. So my goal with chatting about all these different elements of brand marketing is how can I help provide context so that you really understand how this can work for your brand? So talking about agency versus in-house, because I think this is something where oftentimes these brand equity moves will feel disjointed because you're not letting your external agency be on the ride. I am agnostic as to whether or not you go agency or in-house, because I've actually seen mistakes be made on both sides. I've seen people choose agencies that have destroyed their account and really killed things. I've also seen internal employees do a lot of damage. So there's not a one best way. But if everybody's not working together, it's going to be a guaranteed, I'm not going to say failure, but you're not maximizing what you can do. So it's your responsibility as a brand to provide a full funnel view. If you have an influencer event coming up, or if you are working with particular creators, or if you are having a community event, make sure that your other touch points actually know. You have to have honest conversations and really clear around the reality of the results. So the interesting thing is, as you start to grow brand marketing, you will see other things really start to skyrocket. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to increase spend across the board, because what will happen is, yes, your ROAS is increasing, but you could also be increasing your MER. And if your marketing efficiency ratio is not set up for profitability, then you're kind of unwinding the entire act of what you're doing. So this is where, and like, guys, I don't dislike Google. I just always feel like it's the one that I tend to argue with. I'll call one of my Google guys, James, and be like, James, I love you, and you're doing such a good job, but like right now, like this has caused this. And you'll be like, oh, okay, cool, thanks for letting me know. And your favorite child in your marketing funnel is going to change from time to time. That's totally okay. Chase the wins, and then when something isn't working, try something new. But that something new doesn't always have to be relying on Meta, because that's actually a very, very unfair thing. So where you're going to see wins are the fact that brand is going to drive your performance. So brands who are absolutely nailing brand marketing are going to see a steady improved ROAS where you feel comfortable to scale, a reduction in your CPMs, social proof that you're not paying for. You won't be spending on awareness on Meta. You'll be spending awareness in ways that will help drive a longer lifetime value. A reduced marketing efficiency ratio, which will either drive better profitability so you can improve the business in other places, or give you the confidence to scale. And diversification of your spend. So whenever somebody is like, Meta's a trap, I don't want to be there, your goal actually shouldn't be to reduce your Meta spend, but to increase your business and then diversify your overall spend so that you're still increasing Meta incrementally as your business grows, but that it is not the be-all and end-all, and you now have all of these other fun channels that you can be playing in. And you'll have a happy CFO and more money to spend on the fun stuff. I think I love having a conversation with the CFO as to why I want to do something, because then it shows that I have the conviction behind my strategy to really do something cool that's going to drive results. I love being questioned, because then I decide, is it something that I actually want to do, or am I just, again, doing it because I really love cool stuff? So I guess my final note is that Meta and a 360 marketing strategy absolutely go hand in hand. And Meta is tough, but it's probably feeling even worse because you're expecting one channel to drive an entire business, and it's too competitive to do that. So you need to be more agile and be more strategic and get your brand team and your performance team to work together. And if you are currently both, then you need to figure out how to make the left side of your brain really become best friends with the right side of your brain. Well, that is all from me in terms of this. I did want to leave a little bit of time in Q&A because I do know that I speak fast, and if anyone has any questions, let me know. Those are my Instagram handles, because I really suck on LinkedIn. Like, I'll post something sometimes, but if you have a question, you can also send me a DM. Yes? Reddit. Okay, so Reddit I think will work for some brands, but not all brands. Reddit advertising is actually something that I've watched work for brands where their customer would naturally go on Reddit. So I think there's a lot of, anything that requires research, Reddit ads really tend to work. If you are a brand where you feel as though my customer's natively not going to be on Reddit, I would actually say look at Substack, not from a lens of necessarily advertising, because I don't actually know if you can advertise on Substack, but there are so many brands where like a marketing girl is their core customer. I know, like, as a marketing girl, everyone loves a Substack. What way to build lifetime value? I've seen Reddit work really well for supplements and healthcare, but sometimes for fashion, unless it's like really niche, I think it's a little bit harder. And when advertising on Reddit, people are very often well educated. So right now, particularly for fashion, fabrication is a really big play. So if you have a polyester-based product, I wouldn't be focusing on Reddit, because that customer tends to be more conscious when they're doing their searching, and it doesn't seem to land in the same way. Yeah. Okay, well, if no one else has any questions, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy Retail Fest.